Welcome to the April 2nd OpenZFS production user call. We have Richard, Andrew, Dan, Greg, Stu, Jan, and myself, Michael, so far. And from last week's, or even the week before's, leadership call for OpenZFS, Mav pointed out that somehow the builds of FreeBSD for Google Compute are not quite up to date, and there are no up-to-date ports for OpenZFS in FreeBSD if you want to try something later and greater than what's in base. Well, Martin M., who's been maintaining it on FreeBSD, kindly took over the port and has been pushing updates. I did not find one on ARM64. However, over on an Intel-based system, I did a package search and it said, boom, here we are. Jan, you might know, what is the syntax to say, hey, please load this specifically? Would it be like manually specifying boot modules or something?
If I remember correctly, the kernel module has a different name.
Correct.
And you would just put that in loader.conf and /boot/loader.conf.
Caveat, booting from it will probably bite you in the butt if you update your tool and have features that are not supported, because the whole purpose is to like try new stuff. Just saying.
Yes and no. Then you have to load the kernel from another file system, which is possible. You can have /boot on, for example, UFS or even CD6960 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or FAT32 even. So you could have a big UEFI partition or whatever and keep the kernel there. And then you would have to make sure that UFS top is in place and then use a symlink to wherever you mount that.
Okay.
Or nullfs would also work so that you see the real /boot, because you don't want to have two kernels installed and have to keep every loader conf chains and so on in sync. That's just messy. It's easier to either have a nullfs or a symlink for /boot to make the mount point appear in the right place, or the right directory inside the mount point appear in the right place, depending on what you're doing.
But the loader needs to be updated. Oh, yeah, well, the loader
in the right location, running make install word install kernel will do the right thing.
Right, but we're talking
because it's installed in /boot.
Okay.
/boot is writable in the right location, then everything is fine.
Okay. Well, I'll try to give that a go and I'll share what I learned.
But the other way would be to reroute the system. So that you boot it into userland, set a few kernel environment variables, and then do a reroute with the reroute flag, which is a FreeBSD specific way of doing this, where you basically do everything you would do during a clean shutdown. You end all user space processes, you unmount all file systems, and then that's for Solaris. And then instead of actually rebooting or shutting down, you then mount a new root file system, start a new init, and do the normal boot. The trick is that things like kernel environment variables and decrypted diffs are still available.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Useful.
I encourage people to test that and use that. And we, in a recent call, we did see some really cool usage of rerouting. So, but that's very FreeBSD nerdy. So let's broaden this. Back to FreeBSD. The Google build environment seems to need Cloud Init and Serial Console enabled. I'm sitting here scratching my head. Wow, I thought we had ONIF console fixed for Beehive 1,000 years ago. Okay, 10. But Tino's is more of a Linux user, is building those. You can reach out to him and release engineering about that. Oh, and Dan, maybe that's now on your radar. So, Jan, thank you for your idea of using ZFS diff for a light touch audit to see where users are going. And I was quite surprised that you need the data set mounted, even if read-only, and this has absolutely nothing to do with the .zfs directory. It simply has to I think, has to do with some internal goodies, and Paul in the Slack channel mentioned that this instruction might require it to be mounted, but we all thought, hey, you should be able to just diff2 snapshots without any mounted file system. Could be wrong. Or it is
But
walking the paths internally, you think, from your chat?
it has to. It sees the difference, it finds some kind of object, and then it has to turn that into a path,
Okay.
which kind of requires it to find its parent and so on. And if you do that, you're basically reading the file system. So it probably makes sense to just say it has to be mounted, because then you can use the normal way instead of having to rewrite the code
Yep.
just for the special case.
Well, I was hoping it did something smarter, yet if it's going to walk the tree, I may as well walk the tree and look for things like
No. It does not
user
fully walk the
metadata.
tree.
Doesn't
It
fully
does
walk the tree,
something
okay?
smarter,
Okay, good.
but to turn the objects it located as modified back into human readable paths, it has to then basically turn this inode number back into a name,
Ah, got it. Thank you.
and then find this name's parent directory name and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So it knows what has changed, but it had to turn it back into something other than an object identifying 128 or 64-bit ID.
What would that
You
ID
have
be?
to
You said either
integer.
right. So what inodes or something, or Z nodes, or what
Uh,
the heck do they call them?
yeah, the layer beneath that, basically,
Okay.
yes. Some kind of object ID what
Okay.
it
That
gets.
makes more
And
sense. Thank you. So it's for the darn him.
apparently
Get it.
that's at least what I found from looking through GitHub issues as
Got it.
claimed. It's
Yay.
not that it's less than any official
Okay.
capacity. I haven't read the code myself, it's just what I've seen claimed.
Um, I'd be curious about the performance between doing it purely at the POSIX level and what this turns out to be a mix of the POSIX level and ZFS level. So moving on, and we can discuss this as a group as you please, but I would love to have range support in more tools than destroy. You can do like destroy this snapshot to that one. Oh, whoops, that's a bad example. Let me do, hold on, 20 at typo 2025 say 0101 range there instead of doing the entire prefix of it, such as life. I've noticed that in a few places. Oh, and there's also that typo. So maybe it does support, I don't think so. But that was a quick thing. However, it took like, an hour to do a ZFS diff from, say, late 2004 to last week. That was fascinating. They do kindly have checks. Oh, what the heck? My copy failed. They do have, of course, the header handling and human readable handling. So the -H and H flags, capital and lowercase, are your friend. I'll check that syntax on another machine. So if you do not do some of the human readability, you get like a little dash greater than arrow to say this file has been renamed, which is interesting. Otherwise, it becomes a tab and you just have output with the like original path and the new path. So I decided to focus on doing it offline. So I just let the machine crunch and do a diff. It's actually from a backup. So that was kind of the whole point. It's just let her rip. There was from 317. No, that should have been a lot. 23. Let me fix that. Oh, from this date, in November of 23 to like very recently, the B doesn't matter to you. And that took 9 hours, 1 hour, 9 minutes. And I then reran it from like the beginning of this year. It took 1 minute. I'm sure some of that metadata was cached. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to ignore any renames and I'm going to ignore removals for what it's worth because I'm just looking for activities. And so I did a simple, crazy simple script to just ignore certain parameters and then just spit out the second column. The first column is the add, remove, modify, blah, blah, blah. And there's a dir name command. I thought, oh, I will strip off the actual file names, but no, it doesn't like standard IO on FreeBSD. Every time I try to pipe into it, it's like, no, thank you. So I had to do other stuff because I thought I could just strip out the actual file names and do some sort
What
unique and it would
about
go ahead.
piping, running it through Xargs? Just pipe it into Xargs and have Xarm run dir name for each batch.
That was precisely what people suggested, and the syntax I quickly copy and pasted, didn't do it. So I was like, screw it, I can do it another way. I'll do it
One thing
another
to
way.
watch out for is that Xargs doesn't give you fine-grained control over the separators. So
Oh,
you might
interesting.
have to use find with print 0 or something. Whereas Xarg, you can't just specify everything. So you may have to pipe it through SED to rewrite it or something, make it safe. If I remember correctly, the latest POSIX finally tries to forbid new lines and paths. It's only been half a century.
Yeah. And related to that, of course, people have like funny characters and spaces and all kinds of noise in those directory paths. And of course, some of the directories are really deep and nested and some are not. So my first thought was just strip off files, then work my way back. But this was pretty much a smoke test, and I'm glad as a result. So let me just belt it out there, and then we can jump into
It's even
open.
funnier when you try to sort something only to find out that's an illegal byte sequence in your current locale. Like you
Yes,
have a
I think
legend one path and it's an illegal byte sequence if you try to sort it in a Unicode locale.
if you're on the screen, yes, I bumped into some stuff and I literally piped it through Echo or or through Cat, and it's like, okay, that cleansed whatever the hell it was, and I moved on.
You have to just run the command like sort with lc all equals C
Oh, okay. You
to
can
disable all local processing. But the local
sort
equals
with.
C is just strings are byte strings with null
Okay,
terminations. And
so
just
equal C
stress
like that.
uppercase.
Okay, cool. Thank you. There, lesson learned. So pressing on, I just took that output and went from 17,000 lines to chopping off file names using instead of dir name and other and cut, I just used awk fine. And so I brought it down from 17,000 to say a subset, so a subset of 5,500, started chopping off directory deep nested bits and got it down to something manageable of say 1,700. You could also use cut. I'm surprised that gthumbs.db is all over the place on directories that only have that, which is a surprise. So maybe it read files, no one touched them, but then a preview is spit out. Off you go. I started from there doing a ton of grep-vs, and I got into some lessons here. You want to use your brain and see what humans have done and then start excluding right there. So if you know there's something you want to keep, just strip it out and start inverse grepping to ignore it. And you'll find that that gives you the outliers rather than a ton of the same stuff repeated over and over and over. Off we go. Oh, artwork themes, we've done that. That's back to the summit from last time. So I will say in summary that this was genuinely useful. Greg, can I share your comment there? And the fact that knowing that it's a combination of under the hood ZFS and then doing its own metadata versus entirely at the POSIX level using the mounted ZFS directory, etc. Yeah, there I can imagine at least some syntax examples, as you've kind of just done here, and using find and just a whole Unix toolkit to interrogate the system. And to absolutely state the obvious, this was all inspired by saying, hey, let's just turn on Samba Audit. Well, Samba Audit would give me information from the moment I turned it on rather than back to like November of 2 years ago. And this could be as gentle touch as you want. If you even just did one, diff by diff per snapshot, or as I did it, just a complete run that took an hour, and then I post-processed it. Do it off hours and have a nice day. So I was delighted with what I found. It answered the questions I needed to answer. There were definitely hotspots where people spend their time, and there's like, an invoice every day or something. And then there's some really random stuff. I did not go as far as looking for possible security violations and this and that. That was not the purpose of this, but darn it, it was insightful. So, right, Samba Audit from the chat will give you reads, but for this purpose, couldn't care less. I just want to see where, it's like, what do I need to back up if I had to do it backed up separately, through rsync to some non-ZFS system or anything like that. Yes, Jan.
You have
Open up the discussion.
Let something like rsync inspect everything they have write access to. Not just the things they did change, because you can't know what changed. You have to scan everything. Okay, you could argue that you could have a script which takes ZFS diffs to tell rsync what to sync. That would be a nice optimization to avoid having to scan the whole file system in the naive way.
Exactly. That, yes.
But that's not a replacement for doing the right thing.
They're all tools in a tool chest.
And for auditing, oftentimes you want to know, for example, who has had access for something. If you have to do data loss prevention or, let's say, analysis after the fact, you have to have audit records to see which analyst in your tax minimization company had access to what when before they did their insider trading.
Right. Yep.
What did they actually read is the important part, and not what could they have read.
Oh, correct. Which was, again, somewhat out of scope for this. I wanted those broad stroke hotspots, and I found them, and a few outliers, and that was, for this science project, perfectly adequate. But I do like the fact that you can hybridize from there with, be it a combination of rsync or, like you said, a smarter rsync. It's like, yeah, why just do a brute force crawl of the file system and know that stuff will be changing in the process, and then use that wisdom of like, hey, these things matter and should be individually copied and save a whole bunch of trouble. Or I realize there might be a situation where you accidentally saved off a file with just like the ending or some ambiguous name, and ZFS diff could say, hey, I happen to know that this changed. It might not be what you're looking for, but here was the most recent file changed, and go in and rename it to what you want. Have a nice day. So it reminded me that ZFS is awesome. Greg, it sounds like you've done some tricks here, the xargs to exec for your, deletion scripts. Cool. It keeps failing with argument too long.
That's not an issue because you can delete directly from find. There's no reason why you should have to run exec to do a delete.
Good to know.
You have a delete primary. Run it with print first, and then delete for the second pass if you're happy with the output.
Interesting.
I tried a few ways with dash delete and others. This is going back 2 years since I wrote this script, but almost everything I was doing, I was getting argument lists too long, and this was one of the few ways. Well, it was the first way I found where I wouldn't get that, because as soon as it stopped throwing that error, I stopped looking for a solution. So yes, there's probably better ways to do it, but this way it does do it.
if you want to ignore deletion errors, because if you have something you can't delete because, for example, it's system immutable, that would fail the remove command unless you use the -f and so on, then that would fail the whole find. If you wanted to more or less continue, you could do something like print 0 to print a null byte terminated list, and then have xarg with a -0 argument consume that. There's like an ideological debate and POSIX cycles
Yes.
if that's a valid way, because oh no, if we allow the specification of text is non-null, so you can't have text processing tools process null byte terminated values. Yeah, but historically there is no other value you know will not be in a path. The null byte is the only possible separator
Okay.
without quoting, because every other byte can appear in a path. So it makes total sense to use null byte separation. And both FreeBSD and Linux have pretty thorough support for consuming that, but for then outputting it again is oftentimes the problem. You kind
Greg,
of only get one step.
Yes,
Greg,
sir. Yep.
I messaged you, I replied to your message. Xargs has a -n option where you can limit the number of arguments. The default is 5,000.
Oh,
So
Oh, that's cool. I
But
didn't know that.
also,
But well, if you
let
put
them
like
finish.
if you put 4,000, will it process the 4,000 then continue on, or does it just
Yeah.
stop there?
no.
Oh,
What it does
cool.
is it queues. Well, at the moment, what it does is it does 5,000, then does the next 5,000. So it would do exactly the same as it does now, but sending fewer arguments to whatever it is you're invoking each time it's invoked. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. No, that sounds like it'd work too. But I'll take a look at that. Like I said, I stopped looking when that first one I pasted actually stopped throwing that error. So
there are also
Using
smarter
-n will
tools.
make it faster for you.
okay, yeah.
Because for example, instead of deleting one file at a time, it'll delete 1,000 files at a time, for example.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'll give that a go. Thanks.
Good luck.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Jan.
There are also tools like GNU Parallel,
Right.
which allow you to specify both the batch size and the number of concurrent batches to process. If you really have something more expansive to run.
Cool. Okay.
Unless you're deleting everything, searching for the few files you want to delete is probably slower than issuing the unlinks. It is what it is. But especially if you have something like a high latency connection and different sized files, you may want to run, for example, SFTP with a single control connection or multiple SSH connections to kind of load balance it and have multiple concurrent transfers to deal with disk and network latency.
Yes, sir.
So that you still get good throughput. Because if you have like a big pool with, let's say, 45 disks or something like that, just reading one small file at a time is not how you get good throughput. You have to give the pool multiple concurrent read streams to max out the throughput unless you have giant files.
Yep. Amen. And that's why having something like ZFS diff behind the scenes as one more tool in the tool chest is just awesome. Let's see.
Or do a ZFS send.
Let's see. Did I lose fine path? No. Or RM. Oh, I think it chopped my syntax. What the? Cool. Has one thought in the course of this is like, hey, here are some, be it quiz questions or exercises or otherwise. I am curious who's explored these in anger in production and needed to find stuff and solve a problem, I was looking for hotspots, but obviously others have other motivations. There's like smarter backup, there's selective backup. Steve hasn't joined, but he had this legacy application that has a whole mess of commingled data and metadata, and he cares about one but not the other. So I see how that might be useful. So yeah. Anything else on this topic? Cool. If that is a what's the term Alan uses? A submarine topic for the summit. Let's explore how to qualify that, organize it to maybe a broad question of, hey, finding stuff in ZFS environments or optimal finds or forensics, which it's the broader topic, I will admit, is the whole auditing, and we want something like Greg's cool Cumulo product that just answers all sorts of questions effortlessly. But for those of us stuck at the command line, here are a few tips and tricks.
It's not a bad place to be stuck.
Yeah, I know.
That's where I was going.
Unix
I'd rather be
nerds.
stuck there than clicking to continue.
Exactly. No, you're so right. And in absolute parallel, no GNU, parallel pun intended, I spent the same time fighting with a proprietary Nix Finish bookkeeping system that uses SQL servers. That was the exact opposite. Painful. Good point, Dan. Dan, note. Pair before, after. Oh, and I suppose one broad theme is that it is so easy to get inundated with garbage, like doing TCP dump on a big organization, and just wow, that you instantly get gigs, if not hundreds of gigs of data, and trying to find a needle in that haystack is a challenge. Same with all of this. So there's that. There's that list. I'll punch that to the top. Yes, Jan. Final thoughts.
When it comes to processing streams of file names, as long as you have either a shell which can read a null byte like ZSH or bash, it may be more portable to only rely on shell build-ins and then kind of do the job management yourself in 10 lines of shell than expecting a special helper like no parallel to be installed.
Ooh, amen. Okay.
But that requires a little bit of shell scripting to kind of read the lines or straight null terminated strings in. I would argue that if you're putting new lines in paths you're asking for it, and the script should just detect that and break with a loud bang. And otherwise, after that validation, use new lines because it's so much easier to process downstream.
Can you point to any fields of research where people do a whole bunch of this, even though it might not be related to file systems, be it other text processing? Strategies, cool tools, clever needle in a haystack finding strategies. Thinking out loud here.
Don't have one single source to point you at. Would have to be more specific than that.
Well, in my case, I was looking for file system hotspots over time where just people spend their time in how should I restructure, say, permissions and groups and all that to go with the real world need rather than an imagined one or projected.
And your definition of a hotspot is something which changed recently?
Frequently, because I went back quite some time and just looked where people are going on this ancient tree that's littered with crap. Like what seemed to be WinNT root installations of the OS just dropped into directories. And that was probably done once, probably by accident or as a temporary backup. And then it sat there for years and gee, no one's been in there. What do you know? So that kind of stuff. File system analytics, would that be the term, which can take many forms? Anyway.
maybe do a screen test, just revoke read access and see what happens.
That was the initial plan until your suggestion of just, well, start with the diffs, and you were correct and helpful with that. So I appreciate that. You're often helpful. And the initial alternative to a screen test was, again, just enable some Samba auditing, but that does not help for, say, end of year or beginning of year activities that are not going to be obvious in the middle of, say, March. Anyway.
What your approach would totally overlook is something which, for example, serves as a template for new projects or something, which would get duplicated to create a new project, and then you put in the project number and maybe the new project name instead of project number XXXXX Fuba
Yep.
Instead, such a thing would be totally hidden, the origin of that any kind of read-only access.
Correct, but users were pretty good about including that where the derivative stuff was, either through brilliance or complete naivete. So yeah, typically in the top of a directory was like the template, and then gee, went up a directory, I knew it would be taken care of. So in this situation, I see how that can definitely in some situations be a problem, and that gets to screen test where, hey, where did our templates go? Okay, sorry about that. Let me move them over. Other ideas, questions, topics completely unrelated to file system crawling and forensics and stuffs. And by several accounts, the summit will be October 25th through 27th. However, I want to have some artwork. So Greg, thank you for your offer on that. We'll try and have that early next week. I mean, what's a conference without cool year-specific inspiring artwork? Darn it. Greg, do you think you can make it out in person this year?
Sorry, I was already talking. I was going to say, if she doesn't want to do it, I'll take a stab at it myself.
Oh, cool.
Doesn't matter if you use it or not, but I attended our class or two. I will not be attending this year. Yeah, I know.
Work-related or non-personal work-related, like global politics?
A bit of both, I guess. It just makes it an easier decision. You know, yeah, I don't want to get into politics, but I don't like that guy too much.
I hear you. Yeah. So, broadly,
you guys,
on the summit, we are navigating carefully, like, okay, what concerns, how can we help people visiting from far away? I confess I'm looking at alternatives in, say, Vancouver, BC. So, yeah, all pointed. Yes, you were saying.
I was actually, you just answered me. I was going to say you guys decide to keep it in Seattle, I guess. So.
Portland, just south of Seattle, but
Portland,
BC is a 5-hour drive from here. I sure like that, and that's something I'm researching for future events regardless, and there were some nifty colleges that had nice facilities, be it both downtown or near Burnaby, and there is macOS DevOps VR, I believe he called it, which is something from OpenZFS attendee Nick Z, who coordinates that. I think it's in June. So he's been kind about sharing some experiences on venues, etc. Had some great suggestions.
Yeah, SIGGRAPH's been there a few times in Vancouver too.
Okay, that is helpful insofar as like stealing venue ideas is like one of the easiest things ever. So SIGGRAPH is a great example. Thank you.
Yeah. I spoke there with them, with Google and Pixar a few years ago.
Great. And I suppose
they told me
IETF goes up there too. Go ahead.
Yeah. They told me it'd be a small group of people because I was afraid to go up on stage, kind of thing. And I went up there and I couldn't believe I was standing beside the CTO of Google and Pixar. I was trying to figure out why was I there, but anyway, they said don't worry about it. It's only going to be about 15 or 20 people.
Oh,
So I
geez.
had all my friends there. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Long story short, they had to stop admitting people because they were violating the fire code for the amount of people in that room, and there was probably 600 people there. I thought I was going to pass out at one point, but anyway, I got over it and got through it.
Well, burying the lead, you attracted hundreds of people to your talk?
No, not me. Not me. The subject. This was during the cusp of cloud rendering and whatnot, and one of the biggest challenges were like 10 gigabit links and 1 gigabit links were still really expensive, almost to the point of making it not make sense to render off site. But those came down quite a bit. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I was there to talk about, is the distributed render and offsite.
Sweet. On
And
CFS?
how we transferred it. Well, whatever it may have been. At that time, I was using that product that I mentioned here, FDT, Fast Data Transfer, which is like the open source Aspera equivalent. Yeah, so I was, yeah. Bandwidth and data movement was what I was covering in that conversation.
Note. Come on, browser. Greg, cool. Oh, Stu, do you have a pitch for your NAB booth? Should we all be there?
Sure. Hopefully I won't be, but no. Based on the number of meetings I'm already scheduled for, I'll probably spend about 5 hours there total. So
Jeez. Okay. Well,
we're South Hall. As you walk by Dell, we'll be the next one on the left.
sweet. Oh,
So
I'd love to be there for a day.
SSS and open drives within about 10, 20 yards.
Could you please scope out who is using OpenZFS? That would be great. These are strange times in all things open source. NAS is based on OpenZFS. And I'm sure your product is excellent. And
but competitive analysis is always a thing.
Bingo. Other topics, questions, ideas as I look up the UTC time right now. 2050X UTC. And my NAS is moved and back online. I can get last week's call up. My apologies for taking my sweet time on that. That would be the 9th, 2025, 499. Boom. Going once, going twice. And thank you for that link on FDT. I know Rod was doing some similar sounding work. He should be back tomorrow. La 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 la. And what was the proprietary project product that replaces or complements?
Well, yeah, the equivalent. Yeah, so there's a few of them. There's Signient. What was it? File Catalyst. Yeah, File Catalyst and Aspera. And I'm sure there's more out there now too.
But those are the market share in the media business.
Yeah.
Cool. I can look those up offline and get some correct links. It's fascinating.
Absolutely, it is. And it's like these guys want a serious amount of money for their products.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you just get the want like from A to B kind of transfer. But they do a lot more than that, depending on how much you do. Anyway, FTT does like 95% of the efficiency and the actual like on the wire data. But it lacks the management and all the bells and whistles around. So it's not something like if you're working with a client, you'd say, hey, set up FTT and we'll be happy. You kind of have to have a tech guy on each end that is into this to set it up. There's no like GUI wrapper for it, and it's a typical open source project, so it requires some licks to set it up in a way that's going to be automated somewhat.
Okay. Do you use that for ZFS send or purely
You can
raw
actually,
files again?
yeah, no, you can actually take their library and wrap pretty much whatever you want with it.
Okay.
So to answer your question, yes, you could use it for that. It's going to take, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not looking right now, but I bet you I could find someone who's doing that already. Because this has been out for like 10, 15 years. So I'm sure someone has done it by now. And
Okay.
then wrapping protocols is a thing. So like, have you ever heard of grid FTP?
Not in a long time.
No, yeah, they're doing something like that. They're just wrapping the FTP protocol. So,
Cool. Cool. Well, Heidi, please put in the back of your head ideas for the summit of a panel discussion or demo, a nifty cool demo of how you're using CFS and FDT to just save yourself an absolute fortune on these alternatives. Biocatalyst.software. Cool. Found it. Okay. Anything else, gang?
I'm good.
Cool. Well, Andrew, Jan, Jan, and Stu, I will perhaps catch some of you tomorrow for Beehive. It sounds like you've got some topics, Andrew. I've got a bucket of topics.
Well,
And
it sounds like you already had mine covered.
it didn't make it to the doc, so actually it's really good to discuss that.
Okay, well, I'll try to copy it into the doc sometime.
I'll try not to quit my IRC client and lose it. Oh, I'm a cool kid with what do you call it? Quassel. I have the client and the server running somewhere.
Yeah, I've got my Omnios server at home has a zone that runs it.
Sweet. Ooh, IBM. That's better. That's
Huh?
better.
Yeah, that product changed once IBM bought them. Just like all products change when IBM buys.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I bet it's all the money.
It's gone from taking like 15 minutes to renew my license to I've delegated it to somebody else because I can't handle dealing with them anymore.
Wow.
It's bad. And Broadcom is worse. Like because we have some
I was about to
VMware
mention
here.
Broadcom.
Yeah, they're the worst.
Which I have to get a thing out to somebody who's wanting to move off of Broadcom.
Yeah, I'm just before this call, I've been working with Proxmox and setting up my backup scripts and whatnot. So that's the way we're heading. I've used it before at another shop a couple of years ago, and it was fine there. And I'm like, you know what? This technology isn't like magic anymore. It's not a black box. So it's been matured for a couple decades now. I'm comfortable using a non-VMware product.
Oh, it's fantastic. Proxmox is fantastic. So
yeah.
I have 2 VM servers that I have left to finish migrating.
Yeah,
that's everything's on Proxmox.
Yeah, it's an odd choice Broadcom made. You know, they basically told everyone if you're not a Fortune 500 company, we don't really want to talk to you. And just last week, they updated their minimum core count.
That? Yes.
Yeah.
From what are the numbers?
Minimum?
I think it's more Fortune 50 and government.
Yeah.
What did they update their minimum core count to?
I think it was 17.
Wow.
Or 70. Yeah. It was huge. It was,
Core count, as in the smallest system you can buy, or
the smallest license you can buy.
17 cores.
So if you have a 3-machine cluster, and each processor has 12 cores, they're still going to charge you for a 72 core license.
Yeah, that's just a rent-seeking asshole behavior. They want to extract the investment out of a dying product. It's short to midterm thinking what they're famous for. Acquire something and squeeze the existing customer base dry.
So does this
Yeah.
mean that if I installed this on my R730 in the basement, which has like 72 cores or something, that's what I'd be charged, despite the fact that I only dedicate 3 cores to it?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like
Okay.
you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. Won't be buying it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it says here. Yeah, even if you have a
1672.
single.
Wow. Ha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Minimum is 72 cores, no matter what your config is, even if you only have 8 cores.
And I
They
swear
highlight that too.
Here's the example copied out of the image.
Oh, it is okay. I swear there was a conversation at BSDCan where someone just shook their head and said they thought we were too small, 25,000 VMs. They were like, too small for Broadcom. Sorry, go away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. On that charming
It's like
note,
it's like why'd you even buy them if you were going to do that? Like, I don't get what the strategy was there.
I
Anyway,
think
You're assuming there is one.
yeah.
I think they committed back when credit was cheap and pandemic hardware bottlenecks. Someone ran the numbers and considered, hey, we can get the money for cheap on credit and just buy it, extract our investment, and maybe sell off the parts we don't want. And the numbers came out in favor. They're not stupid. They're
The thing,
just an
well,
unpleasant entity to deal with.
the thing that gets me about it is that if they wanted to do that, you leave well enough alone with your licensing stuff, and then everybody keeps giving you money just based on inertia. I mean, even
Not quickly enough.
we're a relatively small organization, but we would not have moved if it weren't for the changes for the stuff that we use VMware for.
Yeah, but the thing is that they bought it, and now they want the bought entity to pay for itself again. So they acquired a resource and now expect what they consider a resource to pay for itself again, which cannot work without cannibalizing the asset.
It can, because you just keep getting rent. I mean, rent seeking is a thing,
Yes,
and
but
you can keep getting the same rent. You don't have to cannibalize it if you just keep charging the same amount.
Yes, you can make it eventually pay for itself, but not quickly. I want a quick turnaround on the acquisitions. At least that's my impression. Hey, Alex.
We're doing a preview of the Beehive call tomorrow. So all are welcome to join. It's 10 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. And one hot topic is just virtualizing and, worst case, emulating ancient contraptions like Windows 7 based money counters that are completely unsupported. Hence my question earlier about CSM firmware support. So anyone who's here for ZFS only, I will not be upset if you drop off, but I'm more than happy to talk about hypervisors for a little bit. Anywho, what's on your mind, Alexei?
Yeah, I'm currently just not working with Beehive and stuff because I decided to switch things up a bit for me.
Yeah? Are we losing you?
I'm currently just working for electronics and making a custom font recently.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm making a utility to convert fonts from GPU VBIOSes to like BDF fonts for Xorg.
Cool. And are those fonts that are only found in the firmware?
Yeah, so you can convert the font from a GPU firmware to a font that you can use on Xorg.
Whoa.
It's
Cool.
almost done.
So if you
Doing it
want
right
your full screen X term to look like a frame buffer,
Yes.
Love it. Okay.
do you also intend to support multi-font operation, or would that require something like your XVP for emojis, so that you can have, I don't know, your pile of poo or your red X and green checkbox? How would
I
you
don't
deal
hear.
with glyphs which are not in the 8-bit fonts?
Oh, special characters, glyphs, and
Yeah,
goodies?
like the
Oh,
VMware will only
it's
contain a few code pages, right?
oh yeah, it's just a single 437 code page, so you're not gonna get any other characters than English and stuff.
Yeah, so you either have to merge in some existing font or what?
Yeah,
If you want
probably just merge in some existing other VGA font. int10h.org has very good VGA fonts that you can just merge in, probably.
Cool.
So if you really want to use that daily, I recommend that.
I mean, I've done a little
let's
bit of playing with oh, there's a thing for making true type fonts. And I can't remember the name of it right now, but I wanted one with a couple of custom glyphs within it.
FontForge?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
just
Thank you.
out of curiosity, is any one of you aware of a tool to convert ancient PostScript type 1 fonts and something still supported? Like if I have a special PostScript type 1 font, can I turn that into a true type or open type font? Is there any
well,
such tooling?
obviously Fontographer, but it's been what, 20 plus years since that was supported.
Huh?
Fontographer? That was, I think, Macromedia 1,000 million years ago.
That used to convert.
It would let you control, as I recall, every aspect, but hey, what do I
No,
know?
to convert a font from one PostScript type 1 to true type or open type.
Will FontForge
Not
do
to
that?
mix and match.
I see.
Let's say I have a bunch of old ancient PostScript type 1 fonts from old CDs with proper licensing under conditions you wouldn't get anymore, but in a format I can no longer use.
Off topic.
Because, yeah, totally off topic.
Artwork. No, it's for the Summit artwork. So clearly we need to talk fonts. Font conversion must be pretty straightforward, no? Unless I haven't.
No, it's
It's
not,
okay.
because PostScript type 1 fonts are basically programs generating vector graphics.
Right.
They're not really data as much as like custom special purpose scripts.
Okay,
So-
FontLab, the universal font converter by FontLab. You seen that? And just do a search of it. I'm seeing a bunch of options. Give it a go. Let us know how it works out. Hell, the CFT logo was me reworking a DOS font. And yeah. Anywho.
Looks
Yes,
like maybe FontForge supports PostScript type 1.
Ooh.
So you might be, I mean, it's not something that I've tried. So looking at the documentation, I see reference to type 1 fonts. So I haven't dug into it, but if you were to, but it would be something worth testing. And it's open source free, so just testing should not be hard.
And of course, there's BradSec on GitHub with font convert. Taking a look. ETF. Ooh, I'm not sure if it does it as far back as PostScript. Never mind. La-di-da. Man, it pains me to know what you're talking about. So I will stick around. We can babble about hypervisors. I say we call it good at a few minutes after, and we'll restart the recording if it gets really, really spicy. Okay, thank you, everyone. Who would like the honors?
Like and
Like and
subscribe.
subscribe.
Ooh, we have a chorus here. I love it. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye.